Welcome to Better Thing. This is our weekly live cast. So, welcome, welcome, welcome. We're going to give people just a few minutes to come and join us here. A few housekeeping items. I do these once a week. This one and most are actually Q and A's. So the idea is that we will do a Q and A, answer any questions that you have that you'd like to ask of recruiters, and I'm here as long as we have questions. Also, throughout the week, if you add comments to any of my videos on the channel, I may answer those here, and of course, you can always come and visit me on betterthing.net. That's my site, and put a question right there. There's a spot for you to add questions for our live Q and A's right there on the page. So that's how this is done. And to start off, I'm going to work on a question that was submitted in the comments section while people are joining. And here's what it says. Says, sir, I heard I heard of maximizing salary is important, then promotion is not actually the way to go. Studies show that if we change jobs every 1 to 2 years, the salary will soon outpace any raises or promotions you'd get if you stayed. So what do you do to earn more? Any better ideas to know and apply in initial stages of career in service-based industry? So this is true. You are more likely to get a raise when you change jobs than you are when you stay in the same job. And I don't know why that is. It just is what it is. So um, that said, I'm not a big fan of just changing jobs to change jobs. If you're in a place where you're stuck, you feel like you're not progressing, you're not challenged in your work, it makes sense to change jobs and to search for something that's better. But starting a job is pretty traumatic. It's kind of a big deal to start something new. I try to avoid it. Now in my career in recruiting, it's a little tough, and there are lots of ups and downs, and I have found myself in a position where it made a lot of sense for me to change jobs a couple of times. But I'll tell you, the most enjoyable time in my career, the times that I've enjoyed myself the most, is when I had a job for a good long while. And maybe that's self fulfilling. I kept my job longer because I liked it more, and that might have been the reason that I was there. But yeah, if you're enjoying your work, don't feel like you have to change just to get a raise. There's more to life than money, I suppose. And if you're maximizing salary, there's other scoreboards to track than how much money you make, is what I'll say. And JP Morgan was an interesting place in that people coming in definitely made good money, and we did see a wage disparity amongst people who had been there forever versus people who didn't. But the people who had been there forever and who had made their way up the ranks, they made really good money at that place. Like, they were pretty well off. And one lady I know, I mean, she's just got FU money. She's between stock and bonuses and all the things that she's had for her career. She doesn't have to work anymore. She works for fun at this point. So I know that it's possible, depending on the company that you go to make plenty, to do just fine. So I wouldn't change jobs just to maximize salary in that case. And that's the advice I'll give. All right. Next question. I'm relatively new in my career. I've been applying for jobs, and I am being asked for experience when I don't have any experience. How do you get experience for the first time? This is a super common question. How do you get your initial experience that you need in order to join the workforce? This is hard, and it's something that everybody has had to deal with throughout their career. And the way that you do that is you start off in an entry level role. Typically, there are entry level roles no matter where you go. Now, the entry level roles that you find are terrible. They're the jobs that nobody else wants to do. They've moved on beyond those. And your first couple of years, you're doing what's called paying your dues. And when you pay your dues in work, you're doing work that you have the energy to do because you're young and because you're new at this thing. But the people who are more seasoned, they don't want to do that work. So um, you're going to have to pay your dues is the bottom line. So look for roles that don't require experience. Uh, in fact, I went to school to do communications. So I went to school to be to do radio, TV, communications stuff. That was my original bachelor's degree. But I had a very difficult time finding a job with my bachelor's degree, and ultimately I found a job that was in recruiting, and I was sort of technically good. I had done some contract work, building little databases and things, and I got picked up by a technical recruiter who said you can do better hiring technical people than you can being a technical person. And he's true. It's true. The upside was better, and I'm not a particularly great computer scientist, so I ended up in a job that I hire people all the time, and I've done that for 25 years, and I made a great career of that. That became exactly the thing, but it's not what I went to school for. It's not what I thought I would do when I came out. My daughter's in a very similar boat. She has an English degree, thought she might be an attorney, thought about being a librarian at one point until she learned what librarians made, and she ultimately now is a stockbroker of all things. She works for one of the big trading houses, and she's a stockbroker, and good for her. It's a different track, but it's a way for her to make a better living, and it's more dynamic. It's the sort of work that she wants to do. She gets to be remote some, so those are the sorts of things that she ended up doing. So you end up going and looking for a job that to start is just a job. It's paying well enough for you to pay your bills, and you find the inroads once you're there in order to land in the type of work that you want to do. For me, I just like work. I like being in the work environment. I like the people that I'm with. Typically, that's the most important thing to me, and that's where I landed. And I stayed where I was throughout my career, and it's been so good. It's been very, very good to me. My job today, if you were to look me up on LinkedIn, my job today is to work as a um, uh, executive in a big recruiting company. So we help lots of different companies hire. My specific job is I run technology and analytics and things like that. So back to some of those technical roots that I was talking about a few minutes ago. But that's my advice to you. You've got to just find a job. Starting step one is you just find a job and get any experience you can. Once you have some experience, you can start applying that in lots of different places. But yeah, the early career stuff, the first part where you're trying to figure things out, it's crazy hard. And my advice is just get started. Just get started. Okay. Next question that has come along. Uh, I've always worked in a uh, corporate job, but now that I've been here for a while, I don't trust the companies, and I think I should go work for myself and start my own business. What do you think? Okay, well, I took out some of the more colorful language from that. Here's what I believe. I believe in multiple streams of income, and I always have now. And I have hobbies too. Um, YouTube would be a hobby. I don't make money off of these videos or the advice I give people on how to find jobs. My main stream of income is working for a company, and I actually that is the most effective way to and most consistent way in to make a living. You'll find more people working for a company than you will find people owning companies, at least today. Now you're seeing much more entrepreneurship than we used to, so we'll see where this goes in the end. But as of today, there's a lot more people that work for people. Building a career through a company is the most sure way to build a career, and entrepreneurship is not for everyone. Entrepreneurship is for just some. That said, I do like to have multiple streams of income. So I have a couple of different ones. I actually have a small retail store. I have a comic book store that I own, and there's a gentleman that works there full time as my manager there, and he does a great job. And his life's calling is to do that. Unfortunately, I'm not able to do that for a living. So he he manages that store for me on my behalf. I also have a brand. I have a small brand of consumer products that I create, and I sell those on a number of places, Amazon and other places, and that makes a little bit of income. So I'm not dependent completely on my income working for a person. The reason is that working in recruiting is challenging, but when you look at job markets, especially a market right now, look how many open jobs there are for recruiters. It is insane how many open jobs that there are currently in for recruiters. Here's why. The very first people to be laid off, if a company is slowing down hiring, they're slamming on the brakes and hiring. If they're about to do a layoff, the first people to go are the recruiters because they don't need them. They won't need them for a while, as far as the company knows. So that happens quite a bit. I've been laid off before in my career, and I did not like that. So, um, given that feeling felt well like torture, I decided not to let myself be in that position again. I have other options so that I'm not 100% dependent upon one company. All my eggs are not in that proverbial basket, as you might think. So, do I think either or is the right thing? Back to the question, no, I don't think either or is the right thing. I like both and. So do both and have the multiple streams of income thing. So many people say that it feels cliche, but it's it's the way that I've lived my life. In fact, this goes way back. My grandfather did this. My grandfather was vice president of a bank, but he also owned properties and would have rental properties. So he had a rental property business, and he also had a big corporate business as the vice president of a bank. That's how he made his living. So this is not new. This isn't unique. I think it's strange actually that it skipped my father's generation. My dad has never had a business, though my mom has. My mom has had a business most of my life. That she's had one business or another, a couple that were very big pieces of our income as I was growing up. So yeah, that's how you do this. That's how you do this. Okay, next question. Okay, it says I'm a skilled mid-level worker and I'm running into so many resume farmers, scam jobs, ghost jobs, jobs that pay laughably low wages, jobs that keep getting frozen, and jobs that are not trying to be filled. Most of the time, I don't hear back from anywhere. It's like I'm yelling out into a black void. Well, so this is a common misconception I want to talk about. I'm glad this question came through. The common misconception that people have is that jobs are scam jobs. I don't think there are that many scam jobs. People assume that because they don't hear back or they feel like no one's responding to them, that the job was a scam or it was a ghost job or was not real. The reality is that most of those jobs, in fact, all of those jobs, someone opened with the intent to fill the job. It's very rare. The scam jobs are kind of pricey to post because what's happening is if you're on Indeed, for example, if you're sponsoring a job, and even if for Indeed to scrape it, Indeed's pretty good at telling what a real job is versus not. And they only post and elevate the jobs that are real. So if you're looking on Indeed, if you're on LinkedIn, it's even a bigger deal. It's expensive to post jobs on LinkedIn. So why would you spend money on a scam? Like, what are you trying to get? Now, I've heard of two relatively prevalent scams in headhunting stuff. One is someone claiming to be a legit company with legit jobs, And what those scams are doing is they'll take you through, make it look like you're going through a full interview process. And in the end, they'll get to the point where they're collecting your information for a background check. And they'll get your social security number and your name and all the stuff to steal your identity. So that is a legit scam. And I would verify that, the email address is coming from, like, if you're interviewing with Ford Motor Company, I would verify that the email address that you're interacting with and the URLs that you're interacting with are Ford Motor Company, right? That you're actually interacting there in the right place. So yes, that is a scam. You don't want to be a part of those. Um, Otherwise, just posting a job to post it, it's not usually a scam. What that usually is somebody that legitimately is trying to hire someone. Now, the number of applicants that we receive is insane right now. So you can actually see the number of people who've applied a lot of times on Indeed and LinkedIn. It's a wild number. You'll get hundreds and hundreds of people applying for the same job. That's more than we've ever had in the past. And it's hard to get back to all of those people, honestly. So I don't think that's a scam job. I think those are real jobs. And the ghosting is there's just so many people applying, they don't know what to do. So this assumption that from your perspective, what you're looking at is a scam, it's really not. I mean, most of the time, it's not. Now, he also says jobs that pay laughably low wages. The market's doing something really weird right now where it's had to react to a new push for wages post COVID. Now, for perspective, here's what I'll say. I live in Texas, and Texas minimum wage is $7.25 an hour. I mentioned before, I have a comic shop. There's nobody in my shop that works for $7.25 an hour by any stretch. They all work for much more. And what the market has done is it's moved where that number is, where the market is willing to accept someone. So if the minimum that the market is willing to accept is something like 10, 14, $15 an hour, then that's what people are charging now. That's what people are paying now. And $14 an hour for entry level working at Target, I think starts at 14. Walmart starts at 14. A couple of the fast food places will start at 14. But then you've got like Chick-fil-A, and I think they're like $8 or $9 an hour. So they're way less than you get like at at Walmart or at Target. And there's not a good rhyme or reason other than people will pay what they can get away with paying. Nobody's going to work for $7.25 an hour these days. Just nobody's taking that job. People will work for 14 an hour. They know that that's a good number for them. Will they work for 10? Maybe. Will they work for 9? Maybe. So that's where you're seeing a balance. I'm seeing what people are willing to work for is actually decreased. It used to be nobody would step in the door for less than 10. Now it's down to 9. And I'm seeing people that are taking jobs at $9 an hour. There's a jump park that's across the street, like a trampoline park across the street from me. And my nephew works there, and he now makes $9 an hour. And they did something weird where they changed him from 13 to 9, which I thought was not cool. But yeah, that is a normal rate. But I'll tell you, when that happened, he started looking for another job, and reasonably so, right? Like, why wouldn't you? They're not paying you nearly what you were paid before. Go look for another job, man. Go do that. So that's when you say laughably low wages. The wages are wages where you're that you're willing to take. Now, there's been 2 questions about compensation so far. And what I want to do is address those 2, just compensation as a whole. There was one about best ways to get raises. Do you change jobs? Do you stay in a job? The second question was about the laughably low wages that this other person mentioned. Here's what I'll say. If you are looking for, well, take a step back. The easiest way, the most straightforward way for you to make more money is for you to be a person who's worthy of more money. What does that mean? Companies pay for the value that they think they're going to get. If you are providing value that's worth more to them, or there's an expected value for you based on your skills and experience that's worth more to them than the lower rate, they'll pay the higher rate. So that's the way that you level up your skills, you level up your pay, you become worthy of a higher salary. And how do you become worthy of a higher salary? You know more and you have more experience. That's why people with more experience get paid more. Just straightforward, flat. That's the answer. Why do people with more experience get paid more? Why the older people get paid more? They've been doing this longer and they know more than you. So companies expect them to be better at this. It's funny. My wife is actually she's the same age as me. But she hasn't worked in a long time, so she's doing entry level work at a middle aged age. So she goes in and she actually is being offered a little bit more. She was offered a little bit more, I think, than normal. And the reason for that is not because of her experience, it's because of a level of maturity. They can give her some things like client interactions they normally couldn't give to someone that didn't have the life experience to know how to deal with more senior clients. She did. She had that and was able to show that during the interview process and develop that trust. So, um, but what they're paying for is not experience in what the job on paper says, but experience in interactions that they anticipate that she'll be able to have. All right, let me find you a next question here. There's another one about phony jobs. I don't believe that that's real. You keep saying phony jobs to me. I'll tell you all day long. Phony jobs are not real. Um, there may be a few scams, but those are far fewer than people assume. Um, One of my videos, "The Truth About the Job Market," I talk about a friend of mine who's given up on his job search. He says, "I don't believe there's anything out there for me. I'm just going to network, and that's going to be it for me." And he's just networking from now on. And this next question is similar to that. Unlike the person you mentioned who says that you're focusing on networking now since cold applying never seems to work. I was using ChatGPT for a while, but wasn't getting any results. Job market seems even worse this year than last year. Um, they didn't ask me a question, but what I want to address is this: um, you networking is definitely your best shot at finding a job, and I would do that first. And I would encourage everybody out there to do that first. That's the very first place you should go. That said, it takes 200 applications to get a job. Apply for as many jobs as you possibly can, if for nothing else, to know that you did what you could do to get that next job. So keep applying. Don't slow that down. You should always be applying for jobs. Um, Alex Hermosi said, volume negates luck. He says this about sales: volume negates luck. And he's right. Do it more, and you'll be more likely to find success in doing the thing, right? Volume negates luck. Great saying. I use it all the time. But then it's the same for applying for jobs. Volume negates luck there too. Now, what I'll say is you apply for those jobs and then you're the recruiter, you're chasing hard. You're finding that hiring manager, you're finding the people who are the recruiter, you're emailing them directly, you're in mailing them, you are on the chase hunting them hard. And you can do that. That's 100% within your capabilities. In fact, I'm going to call that friend right after we're done here and check in on him. I haven't done that in a little while. Oh, this is one of my favorite ones. Um, so I have a video on the channel about Gen Z and what the market thinks about Gen Z. It's in direct response to another question somebody asked me, and they had asked that I look this up. But here's what this one says: every generation before us has climbed the ladder and pulled it up more and more. Making minimum wage is next to nothing in this economy. We're going in debt and hungry, just trying to make trying to meet the basics. IQ, this is my favorite part. I love this bit, right? IQ has reached its peak, yet now that everyone is smart, we still have to raise it. Uh, we still have to raise the bar on them, which is shameful. There's no end. Okay, this is so great. IQ has reached its peak. We're so much smarter than the guys before us. The older generations weren't nearly as smart as we are. Clearly, we know everything. And here's the thing: everybody thinks they're the smart ones. Everybody does. I remember when I went to college, my parents dropped me off at college, and I remember sitting there realizing I was sort of on my own at that point. I really took that seriously. I never moved back home after I went to college. I didn't go back home for anything, and I realized that I was on my own, and all of a sudden, my parents seemed smarter than they were before. It's a feeling I remember distinctly having while I sat on the bed of this room all by myself. I remember thinking um, that I underestimated how smart they were and how much I would miss having their ongoing guidance right there. Not having it with me was challenging to me, and it feels like, they say the ultimate wisdom is knowing what you don't know. It feels like there's a whole generation of people that don't know what they don't know. And that's problematic. Like, you need to know what you don't know. And assuming that you're the smartest guy in the room every time, there might be a reason you're struggling to find a job. Every generation before us has climbed the ladder and pulled it up more and more. It's actually an expectations ladder that's been changing. If you think about it, I know the house my great grandparents lived in. I knew them really well, and that house was a very small box. It was a very small box, and it had it did have two bathrooms. There was a master bathroom and a other bathroom, so it did have two bathrooms. But I think it was two bedrooms, a kind of a sitting room in the back, a living room, and then a tiny little kitchen with a place for two people to sit and have a meal. That was it. That's all they had. That's all they ever had. Um, that was my great grandparents. My grandparents, it was a little bit of a nicer box, but it was still a box, and a little bit of a smaller house. My parents, they had a like a 2,400 square foot ranch style house. We had a pool, felt very fancy in back in the day. It was a nicer house. My parents did, and then my house is very nice. I've 3,000 square foot house on a cul-de-sac with the pool and the whole thing, right? I feel like that's very nice. But my kids can't expect to buy the house that I have. They can't expect to buy the house that my parents have. So what could they expect? Well, I don't know. What's good has been going up. The first place I lived was an apartment, and it was pretty terrible. This first apartment that I lived in was pretty terrible. And I did something very strange. We got married really early. We got married at 21 and had a pretty crappy house. But what I'll say is, generationally, I think there's a shift in expectations. There's a shift. Like, if you were to live in the house that my great grandparents had, that style of house, you would think that that's near poverty level, terrible house. But they were regular middle America sort of people. They were not at poverty level. They were what was considered middle class, very comfortable in that place. And I think that's still feasible. That house is affordable on a normal, relatively entry level income. Like my daughter could probably afford that house with her partner. Like the two of them together could afford a house like that and be just fine. So I don't know that ladder is being pulled up. I think that people's expectations are shifting. And if you expect to live in a mansion after you have your first house, it's going to be tough. It's going to be hard to do. So I don't know. My favorite part of that though is, well, we have the highest IQ, of course. Okay, where's your Einstein? I don't know. I didn't meet the Einstein from my generation either. But where's your Einstein? It's certainly not Neil deGrasse Tyson, right? Where's your Einstein? IQ has reached its peak. No, I don't think it has. I think IQ is IQ, and there are going to be some brilliant people that come along. There are going to be some half-wits that come along. We know this. That's just the way the world works. So that's my favorite one. All right. Coming up this week, wrapping up this live stream, coming up this week, we're going to do a over the shoulder. I'm going to do a video where I search for jobs and show how to search on Indeed to find what you need, and then some of the secrets about how to get Indeed to find things for you. So we'll do that a little bit this week as well. Between now and then, best of luck in your job search.